what you think of Zoom. We've been using it for our committee meetings for the last 5 to 6 months maybe, and it's worked really well, so we're hoping it works today. So with that, I would like to introduce the members of the SHARE Executive Council. We have Bobby Perryman from Vespasian Warner, Michael King from O'Fallon. If you guys want to wave as I mention your names, in case people can't see your faces. Sonia Johnson from Decatur Schools, Jill Pfeiffer from, wow, it says Hanson. I thought it said something
Fairview
else.
Heights.
Okay, well, Jill, sorry, the screens just moved on me as people joined in. Okay, so we have Jill Pfeiffer from Fairview Heights, April Becker, Hanson Professional, Scott Drun-Silvers from Lakeland, Michelle Varvel from Carbondale Schools, I believe, correct?
Yep.
Rick Meyer from Decatur Public Library, and Spencer Brayton from Blackburn College. Plus, we have SHARE staff on here, Chris Dowdy, SHARE Director, Joanne Bauer, Head of Cataloging, Tracy Edwards, SHARE Administrative, and Troy Brown, who is handling the go-between from the chat to us. And before we go on, I'll have Troy now give the official instructions that he was giving a few minutes ago, that if you have questions and people are asking, Grant from IHLS is monitoring the chat, and we'll try to pass those on to Troy so they can get them answered. And at this point, Troy, if you want to give them instructions, like if there's polls or how to ask questions and what will happen if they ask a question.
Sure. And I just promoted Brant to be a panelist too, so that he has a little bit more permissions on the chat window. So like I was saying, the chat is your typical chat. It's going to be more discussion. It's going to roll off the screen real quick. Q&A is a neat new feature that some of you may wish to use, where you ask a question and it gets answered and then it kind of goes away. Those actually get reported, and we can run reports on those and email those out to everybody. So you see the answer right with the question. So it's a nice webinar feature. So feel free to chat in a question or do a Q&A. We will need to repeat most of the chat if there's a question and answer, so the recording gets it. And also raise your hand on your little app or on the computer if you wish to talk. We can give you camera and microphone access, and you're welcome to talk and ask questions. So
Troy, you got a couple of more members of the SHARE Executive Council to promote. Diane Donahue is in chat, and so is Annette Mills. Annette Mills is from Triad, and Diana Donahue is, I forget from where. I'm sorry.
Okay, I got Diana. Who else was there?
Annette Mills.
Annette Mills. All right, I'm assuming that's just Annette over here.
If you can only see me, you might check your upper right-hand screen. There's speaker view, and then there's like little buttons that you can click to see the different pictures.
Right. So there's a gallery view and a speaker view in the top right corner.
If you've got speaker view, click that. Maybe why you're only seeing those of us speaking and not the whole panel.
Brant saying viewers cannot see those. Mike.
Oh.
So, I don't know.
Oh, Tina says there's no options. Okay.
Well, shoot.
Maybe that's something Troy controls. I'm not sure. We're still learning. This is our first time using Zoom in a large fashion like this, so we're working through the bugs and hope everybody will be patient. At this point, why don't we go ahead and go on with Ellen Poppett? Is she on? Or Chris, are you doing Ellen's report for her?
Ellen should be here. Hold on. She may not be promoted yet. Let me get her on the panel here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to give you a quick update on what's going on system-wise. First of all, and I'm sure this comes as no surprise to any of you, this is the time of year for certifications. So I began contacting libraries and reminding them that they need to complete the Illinois Interlibrary Loan Traffic Survey as well as the certification. Obviously, the deadline isn't until March 31st, but it's an easy thing to just kind of get off your to-do list. The board is working hard on their advocacy initiative. Staff members here are working on finding a new logo, thinking about a new tagline, rebranding, and then the board piece of that advocacy initiative is working at the message we're sending out and how we send that message out to the groups we're calling our champions and allies. One of the first groups like that we're going to contact is our legislators, primarily at the legislative meetups that will happen in late February and early May. For the first time ever, there will be a legislative meetup in Mount Vernon. I am so excited about that, I can't tell you. That will be the 27th. It will be a luncheon at the Holiday Inn in Mount Vernon, and please do everything you can to get your board members there, to get some staff people there, to be a library presence in conversations with your legislators. Another one will be held as a breakfast meeting in the Edwardsville area at the Sunset Hills Country Club, and that will be on March 3rd. And finally, there's also an event on March 3rd at Bloomington for those of you up in the more central part of the state. And all the details for all of that can be found on the ILA website. The Youth Services Institute will be held for the second time this year at the Holiday Inn. No, I'm sorry, at the Crown Plaza in Springfield, and that will be March 10th and 11th. It is a wonderful event for youth services staff to attend, and if it's affordable, it's close, so if you can get people there, please consider it. Last year, it was held in Bloomington, and it sold out, so its success speaks for itself, I think. And finally, on April 7th is Reaching Forward South at Eastern Illinois University in Charleston. Again, a great, affordable professional development opportunity for staff. So that's sort of what's happening. Tomorrow is the Illinois State Library Advisory Council meeting. I will be there. We'll be having people here at the Carbondale Hub, as well as the Edwardsville Hub, and obviously at the State Library. And don't forget, those are always public meetings, so if you'd ever like to sit in on one, you're more than welcome. So that's my report in a nutshell, unless anybody has any questions.
If anyone has any questions, if you'd raise your hand, Troy can click on you to bring you in as a speaker to ask your question. Also, Troy, I need you to promote Virginia Erickson. Somehow she didn't get promoted to being a panelist either.
Susan, Virginia's not on the executive council.
I thought she was. I'm sorry.
She's on circulation.
Okay, I get my two meetings confused. Sorry about that.
I understand.
Never mind. But does anyone have any questions for Ellen? Okay. We'll move on to the share report with Chris Dowdy.
A couple of exciting things. PayPal is now available as an option for patrons of IHLS to pay for lost books. Since it is integrated in Polaris, affiliate members who are patrons of IHLS can pay for lost books using a credit card, and then IHLS will reimburse the item-owning library. And as an aside, I will be calling 2 prisons tomorrow and telling them that. While it isn't currently set up to do so, share members could use PayPal to pay for any fees they incur, like member fees or bib services fees, though we would have to send you a PayPal invoice, and there is a service fee associated with it. Next item, since the DREAM grant ended, we haven't talked much about transitional members. As you may remember, we anticipated adding 40 new libraries to share with DREAM grant funds, and we actually added 7. By next week, with A. Smith and E. Smith Loda Township Library going live on Polaris, 52 of the transitional members are live, 24 are working on barcoding their collections, and 1 more is waiting on profiling to be completed before they start their barcoding training. And there are more libraries considering joining SHARE. I had a phone call about a half hour before the meeting started from a school, teeny tiny school I've never heard of, north of Springfield, that's thinking about joining SHARE. Anyway, so our reputation is very positive, I think. One of the reasons for additional libraries considering joining is the Walmart State Giving Grant that we received. We were given a check for $75,000 to assist the smallest and least well-funded libraries meet the 4 goals established for libraries by the Illinois State Library a couple of years ago: to participate in resource sharing, to have a discoverable collection, to have a web presence. And by the way, we learned that Facebook counts as a web presence, and to have Wi-Fi access for patron use. Using $40,000 of income from local government per capita funds, equalization aid, personal property tax, replacement taxes, and as reported on the IPLARs are cut off, 54 libraries in IHLS are on our list as potential recipients of assistance from this grant. Of those, 39 libraries are already members of SHARE, which means they have accomplished at least the first 3 goals. Ellen and I are communicating with the remaining 15 about what they can do to accomplish the 4 goals, and to date, we have meetings set up with 6 of them to discuss how the grant could assist them. We've also gotten a few questions from Millinet members who are not members of IHLS about joining SHARE as a result of a letter that I sent to them at the end of the summer. While there may be some interest from some of the libraries on the boundaries of IHLS, those libraries signed a 1-year agreement to participate in their current consortia, so if they make a decision, it will be later in the year. And finally, just before this meeting started, Brant turned on the new training portion of the SHARE website. You want to see it?
Sure.
Maybe I should share my screen. Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, it looks pretty.
Right now, in order to, well, the directions are on the site, but you get to it by just clicking on the training section where you clicked before, up here in the corner. To log in, you have to use your Polaris username and password. He did set up a dummy account so that I could show you, but I think I don't want to take that much time right now unless people would like to see it. But I will also tell you that this is a work in progress. Right now, the only thing, the only courses that are on the site are the cataloging monthly training sessions. Our staff are working diligently to make more video training sessions, and they will be posted just as quickly as we can get them posted. In the meantime, everything that was on the training set portion of the website is still available. It's archived, and you can see that there's a link to those at the bottom of this page.
Looks great, Brant.
Any questions? Then my next comment is, do Tracy or Joanne have anything they'd like to add regarding SHARE and SHARE staff?
I have a couple of things, just some short things. Ellen had mentioned the Illinois Interlibrary Loan Survey, and I am in the process of sending out the numbers for those. State Library gives us an update of who has already completed that. So if you've completed it, I'm not sending you numbers. So just to let everybody know that. There is a new list of libraries that have given permission to loan out their DVDs for 7 days. These are libraries that have a loan period of less than 7 days, and you can find that list on our website under circulation. So if they're on that list, you're free to change the due date to a 7-day due date. You've probably, some of you been getting emails from Kim Sparks. We've started monitoring the bounced emails, and if you have a notice, an email notice that have bounced back or failed for some reason, she's sending out emails to the libraries to double check those email addresses. And then we're just now starting to do the same thing for text messaging. And the last thing is just a heads up, we are going over the new upgrade options for Polaris. There's 2 versions out that we're looking at, and we will be moving to a new version probably within the next 6 or 7 months. So we will let you know more. Brant says 3 months, but we will let you know in plenty of time. So that's all I have.
And all I have, it's Joanne. Training for RDA is in March. We have 3 two-day training sessions set up, March 1st and 2nd in Edwardsville at the Edwardsville Library, at the Edwardsville Hub, March 15th and 16th at the Carbondale Hub, and March 29th and 30th at Decatur Public Library. And these trainings they're sign up in L2, and they are designed for people who already know how to catalog or have started the cataloging process. So if you've taken book cataloging, we want you to sign up for those. We will have these classes later on, but just thought we'd put those out there for the March. And the other thing is CE hours. I'll be sending out emails to alert you how many CE hours you have at the halftime. I'll be sending those in a couple of weeks. And those emails go to the director and the cataloger to alert both of you. Thanks.
Anything else, Chris, from Share?
I don't think so.
All right. Are there any questions for Joanne, Tracy, or Chris at this time? If not, we will move on to our Bibliographic and Cataloging Standards Committee report with Bobby Perryman, who is the chairman of that.
All right. The committee meets every other month to go over cataloging standards and revisions and so forth. Our next meeting will be January 20th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. Everyone is welcome to attend to observe, and attendance does count towards CE credit. Joanne touched on the fact that RDA is coming. Our plan is to have all of our catalogers trained on RDA by July 1st. We'll see how that goes, but that is our plan. And cataloging training sessions that happen monthly are already incorporating RDA. We have one proposal that will be up for vote, and I'm going to share my screen quickly here. If I can, there it is. And this proposal is putting library editions of audiobooks on the regular edition record, assuming that they match. And this happens frequently with recorded books, for example. We'll take a Hachette book or a Blackstone or whatever, repackage it, but the actual discs are exactly the same. This has already been out for member comment, and now it's just ready for vote. And the other thing we have is not ready for vote yet, but it is ready for member comment. If I can find the right one. Oh, I can't find it right now, but Edie sent it out. It's changes to the catalog or training requirements for new barcoders and new catalogers. This is not ready for vote yet, as I said, but we are asking for members' opinions and comments on it. So if you could please do that, we would appreciate it. And that is all I have, unless there are any questions.
Bobby, there's one question in the Lynn Schmitz wanting to know what RDA stands for.
You would ask me what it stands for. Research Description
Access. Resource. Yeah.
It is the replacement cataloging rules are replacing AACR2, Anglo-American Cataloging Rules, Second Revised Edition. That one I know. But if you've looked at records in OCLC lately, you will have seen things that look different from what you're used to, and that is RDA. So that does apply more to cataloging libraries, but barcoders also need to be aware of what RDA is and what it looks like. Any other questions?
I would just also mention that the comments is out on the Share website. That is where they can go make comments on that.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right. That was the bibliographic, and that vote will be we will mention all the votes at the end of the meeting under other news. Next will be Circulation and Resource Sharing Committee report with Michael King, the chairman.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael. I have been the chair of the Circulation Committee since August. I took over from Esther Curry, who had been chair of the committee pretty much since the inception of SHARE. So just wanted to thank her for her 4 years of service and all the great work she's done for the committee. We've had a very busy couple of months. We meet the second Thursday of every other month at 10 a.m., our next meeting being February 9th. And just like the Bibliographic Standards Committee meeting, anybody is welcome to join. Let's see. First on my list, some things that we have taken care of over the past few months. We have passed a new procedure for handling claims return items, and this was based off of member feedback from some situations that have happened at member libraries. This is just a suggested guideline and procedure for handling items that your patrons have borrowed from other libraries that they've claimed that they've returned. So those have been added to the SHARE operational guidelines. Another thing I would like to point out and to thank some people for is that our delivery turnaround time across IHLS and SHARE has decreased to an average of 9.96 days. And this is thanks to efforts of Tracy Edwards and Brant for redoing the whole routing table. And that's, I know that's been a lot of work for both of them, and it has really seen tremendous results. We are constantly, at least at my library, getting lots of positive feedback, and wow, that book came in really quickly. So without you guys and without Susan Palmer and all the operations and delivery team, that would not be possible. So kudos to you all for that. We have also started a new session at our committee meetings where we answer member questions. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you're not sure how to handle a particular interlibrary loan or issue or any issue at your library, you can send me an email. You can send Chris Dowdy an email. We'll add it to our agenda. We will discuss it amongst the committee, and then we'll kind of come up with a consensus answer that we will email back to you, and then we'll also publish your question and your answer in the SHARE newsletter so that everyone can read it. And over the past couple of meetings, we have answered 6 different questions, so please keep them coming. They really make for a lively discussion and help everyone get on the same page. So the 2 things that I am presenting for membership approval, and I apologize that I'm not working on my computer and I'm not able to pull these up right away, but they are in the handouts. First of all, we have a draft policy for merging patron records. This will be out for membership vote since it is a formal policy change. Basically, it's just saying that school libraries should not merge any patron records whatsoever. Academic libraries should not merge any patron records. Special libraries should not merge any patron records. And that's just because their patrons kind of operate independently of each other and independently of all the public libraries. And then the last part just says that public libraries should not merge records of patrons from different library types. So public libraries are still allowed to merge other public library records into their system. And then the last thing I have to talk about is the most exciting, and these are the Polaris fine rate options. And basically, this all came about from a conversation at the last SHARE semi-annual meeting, which happened in May. The very first time that the membership voted on fine rates was back in, gosh, 2012 probably, before we went live on Polaris. And at that time, the Circulation Committee had narrowed down 2 of the 4 options that Polaris allows for consortium fine rates. It had been brought up at this meeting that possibly the membership should be allowed to vote on all 4 options. So I have worked with Tracy, the committee worked with Tracy, and we developed this document that discusses the different fine rates. So we're just putting this out there for everyone to look over again and to have a vote on which fine rate the consortium should follow. Unfortunately, this is a consortium-wide setting. Polaris does not give us the option to set this individually at each library or different groups of libraries. But please take a look at this handout. I can quickly read through these just to give you a brief synopsis. The biggest thing to keep in mind is that these fine rate settings do not only follow overdue fine rates, but they also follow, or they set maximum fines, grace units, days closed, and days that aren't fined. So the first option 1 is patron branch. This is what we're currently using. Patrons are charged the fine rates set by their home library for all materials, including those borrowed from other libraries or physically checked out at other libraries. Option 2 is the transacting branch, which Polaris defines as the check-in location. So patrons are charged the fine rate of the library that checks in the item. Option 3, of course, is lending branch, which Polaris defines as the checkout location. And then option 4 is the item assigned branch. So in that case, the fine rate, the days closed and all that would follow the rates established by the library that owns the item. All of these have advantages and disadvantages. We had posted this out for member comment back in October, and we had received 7 comments that were completely in favor of leaving it the way it is. That's working fine for us. But we just wanted to get this out for vote one final time, and we did put it in the policy that we're not going to visit this for 2 more years. We've kind of had enough. We've debated this enough, and the decision that we make today will stay in place for at least 2 years. And then after that time, if things change and we have different variety of membership, then we can revisit it. But I think that's pretty much all I have. We've been pretty busy on the CERT committee, and please submit those questions for us.
Does anyone have any questions at this time for Michael? Thank you, Michael.
We do have one coming in here. Tina has.
Okay.
Give her a second to connect.
Is it Tina?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and unmute your microphone, Tina. There we
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Michael, when are we voting on this? I thought you said today, but I'm not for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure voting opens up after the meeting is over. Chris, you're
Yeah,
waiting.
the 11th, I think. Yeah.
I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes under the other news and information.
Okay, so I'm imagining that we're going to be voting electronically through a survey or something.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. Thank you very much for your presentations.
Yep.
Thank you,
But-
Tina.
Yeah, everyone, please just make sure you read over that document. It provides different advantages, disadvantages, and different scenarios of how this would affect membership.
And the voting, we have several things that will be coming up for vote, and I believe all that voting will happen, and Chris will give the details on it later on in the agenda. Okay, if there's nothing else for circulation and resource sharing, we will move on to fee finance policy with Jill Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer?
Hi, everybody. If you don't see anything, it's because I don't have a camera, so I don't know what you're seeing right now. So there's nothing wrong with your computer if you don't see me. So I'm the chair of the Share Finance Policy Committee, and we have 2 things that we've brought to you guys to vote on. The first one is the termination of share membership, and this was something that we started proposing in July, and it went out for comment in August. And we received feedback and met again in September and listened to that feedback, modified the document, and then modified it again in November. So the document that you have is one that is been modified and changed in response to comments that people gave. So we appreciate the comments and thank you for them. Are there any questions on that document specifically before I move on to the fee for next year? No? Okay, good. All right. So the next thing is the most important, what are we going to be paying next year for the share fees in Polaris? And so right now what is being proposed and to be voted on is a 5% increase in the fee. Now, the membership fee stays the same. It's just an increase in I guess the basic fee. Would that be fair to say what that is, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah. And we haven't had an increase in, how many years? Let's see here, 3, 4?
Well, at least 2.
2, yeah, at least 2. So, what we did is, we had a preliminary budget for next year from Share, and it was easy to see that keeping the fee the same wasn't going to cover the expenses. So we looked at 1%, 3%, and 5% increases, and the one that matched as closest to the preliminary budget that we saw is 5%. So, I mean, this is really, kind of a no-brainer. Basic math. Got to have the money to cover your expenses. Does anybody have any questions about those proposed fee changes? No. Wow, shocking. Okay. And also our next meeting is January 26th. And of course, we always welcome people at our meetings. We know sometimes we talk about things that get at the heart of what libraries have, which is money and the money to pay for things. So, we do listen and we do appreciate your input.
And is that by Zoom, Jill?
Yes.
All right. All right, if there's no comments or questions for Jill, then we will move on. Thank you, Jill, for your report. E-Resources Committee, which is our new committee we started over the last year. Scott Drone Silvers is the chair of that.
As the other groups, E-Resources meets via Zoom. It also meets every other month. Currently, we meet on the 4th Monday of the month. 3 p.m. Our upcoming meeting is on the 23rd of January. Via Zoom, the information's out there. If you want to join us, please feel free to do so. In some ways, I feel like the committee is off to a somewhat slow start, and that's probably my fault. But some of this has been a matter of trying to get input. I think that we all have an interest in trying to integrate resources with Share. There's interest in doing that. I think at the same time, there are also concerns about how we go about doing that, both from a cataloging perspective, from a circulation perspective, dealing with public service issues and patrons. And so the committee has been talking about some of those issues. I have spoken with, Bobby, I'm going to mess up your committee's name if I try to do it here, since I don't have my agenda right in front of me to read from it. But I've spoken to circulation and to bibliographic services, bibliographic resources, to try and ask them for input for this committee to consider, for e-resources to consider, as we look at the issue of bringing outside e-resources into Share, into local catalogs. That's probably mostly at the level of an individual library, although it may stretch to system-wide resources. Potentially, those decisions have not yet been made. So I've sort of been, the committee and I have been proceeding rather deliberately. We've also been trying to sort of set some boundaries for what are the issues the committee can actually address directly. Since this is a Share committee, it was determined that the resources that we're going to be discussing are resources that are integrating into Share, and not resources that would live outside of Share. And there's some discussion that is sort of off list that needs to occur with that, but I'm going to defer most of those questions to Chris, for which I'm sure she's going to be thanking me later. I would expect at this point that our next step is to get the input that we've sought from both circulation and from bibliographic resources to share with the committee. to discuss going forward what our next steps will be in terms of considering resource integration into the share catalog. We've also discovered some options for making local e-resources available on the catalog screen. One of those is, should probably defer to Tracy on this one, but it's essentially an option that allows you to display some of your local e-resources directly on the share screen. And that's locally configurable. And you can actually speak to Tracy about how to do that, I believe. She has a form that you can kind of fill out to design that for how you want that to appear at your local library. We've also discovered through the process that we have access to a federated search functionality that goes along with Share. And we've just recently gotten had a discussion about how that works and sort of what it looks like. Not tremendously in depth because there's a lot of documentation that goes along with it. And federated search is a fairly old technology at this point. But it's another option for trying to integrate e-resource into catalog records without directly placing those e-resource records inside the catalog. So we're looking at options that involve both integration and sort of making some side-by-side linkages with local e-resources and the catalog. So that's how we've spent most of our efforts to date. I will continue as chair through June, and I believe we'll be doing an election for the new chair of the committee at that time in May or June. And that's all I believe I have at this point. I can take any questions that might come from the group.
I was going to mention, if people want to see what you mean by e-resources on your local catalog, on the St. Joseph share page, I actually have a link to our Mango languages that we purchase. And it was something that I worked out with Michelle while she still worked here back when we first had our share page created.
And Tracy has a fairly lengthy list of libraries that have also done this, that she has URLs to look at their pages, and she could provide that information so that you could see how various libraries have done this. It's the same basic format, I believe. It's just sort of, you can kind of see this
Right.
library has done this a little, maybe a little bit differently than another library has chosen to. So.
Great. So are there any questions for Scott or the e-resources committee?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right. We'll come now to other news and information. I am currently chair of the Share Executive Committee. My term will end in June. And at that time, I believe the vice chair is April Becker, and she will take over as chair at that point, and we will need to elect a new vice chair. Along those lines, we have a couple of people that will be leaving the Share Executive Committee because they have reached their term limit. Bobby Perryman is one. And Chris, you have the list. Could you read it? I just remember Bobby. I don't have a good memory these days.
In addition to the position of chair that Susan has, she is the representative for the small public libraries. Her first two-year term has finished, but she has agreed to participate for another two-year term. There will be 2 seats open for school representatives because Michelle and Annette have completed their first 2-year term, and they say they don't want to continue because they prefer to retire. The seat for academic representative will be open, but Spencer Brayton has agreed to continue for a second 2-year term. As Scott mentioned, the seat for e-resource committee chair will be open, but the committee will elect someone from their committee to fill that position.
And then Bobby's seat, medium public library?
No, Bobby's seat is chair of the bibliographic.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, I can do this, Scott. Bibliographic and Cataloging Standards Committee.
Okay.
Right, Bobby?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so she was representing not as a public library, but as the chair of that committee.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay. All right. So if we have any school librarians attending the meeting today, or those of you out there know some school librarians who might be interested, we are looking for a couple of people to step onto the Share Executive Committee. And we meet every other month, the first Thursday of the month at 2:30 p.m. We just had our meeting last Thursday, so our next meeting will be March 7th? No.
I think it's the 2nd, and we may need to change that because of the RDA training.
Okay, all right. Tentatively, it's for March 2nd, but we may be having to move it because of training. But anyway, we meet only every other month, the first Thursday of the month at 2:30. And if you're interested, please contact Chris Dowdy to let her know that you're interested in serving on the Share Executive Committee. At this point, I'll turn it over to Chris to explain the electronic voting that will be happening.
Okay. According to the Share governing document, voting will be conducted electronically and occur 1 week after the meeting. Technically, that would be January 18th, and typically the voting survey is available for a week. However, it occurred to me that perhaps we struggle to get enough votes for a quorum because people have to wait a week to vote. As a result, we're going to try an experiment, and I will be sending out a link to the voting survey within a few minutes after the end of this meeting, and it will continue to be available through January 25th so that we're still meeting the letter of the law regarding our policy. And as always, I'll email reminders to make sure you get your votes cast during that time period.
And just a reminder, we'll be voting on a cataloging standard policy. We'll be voting on 2 policies for the CERC and Resource Sharing Committee, and we'll be voting on 2 policy and fees for the Finance and Policy Committee. So there's 5 votes total. So it is very, very important that everyone cast your vote and be heard. Okay, at this time, we will open it for question and answer session. Does anyone in attendance have questions they would like to, from the Argento Oriental Public Library Director, 1 vote, 1 library?
Yes.
So anyway, question and answer session. If you have a question, please raise your hand and Troy will put you on as speaker. And it looks like we have someone.
This is Marion over at the Muscuda Library. Hello, everyone. I have a question for Jill because I hurried up and looked up my share fees. There's the member fee of $150, the share basic fee of $55.25, and I've got all these little add-ons. But what she said was basically it's 5% on my basic fee only. Does not include the member fee or any of my add-ons, and I just want to clarify that.
Right. You are correct. The member fee is going to stay the same. We looked at trying to change that, but it didn't generate enough revenue. So yes, it doesn't include any of the add-ons. We haven't gotten any directive from Polaris that like telephony is going up or anything like that. So yeah, it's just the basic fee.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Can I jump in and say,
please,
if you all got the email I sent out and the proposed fees for publics, academics, and specials are posted on the Share website, it already includes the 5% increase in your total. So you don't have to add another 5%. That already includes the proposed increase.
There's a column that says that though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thought so. All right. And there aren't any listings for the schools because, as Chris mentioned in an email, we're still waiting on their fall head count to come up with a number.
All right, are there any other questions? Troy, would you mind doing a quick poll? How did everyone like the Zoom meeting today instead of having to drive to a central location versus and and using VTEL and some of the other ways we have.
Probably gonna take me longer to write that poll than,
No, just to ask if you liked Zoom, I guess. Did everyone like Zoom today? And if you want to make more detailed comments, please email us after the meeting,
absolutely.
Chris or myself. You know, I just thought of something, Chris. We talked about executive council seats. Do the committees change membership in July as well? Do we have anyone that's going off or, okay, she's shaking her head no.
There aren't any term limits for committee members,
Okay,
but
all
they
right.
can only be chair. That's the only time limit.
Okay, all right. Oh, we got something under Q&A.
Marion asked, she just wanted to comment, seemed to go fine since she's waiting for Troy to type.
Yeah, it takes me a little bit.
All right.
Oh, look at those votes roll in. I love it.
Well, I was quite tickled to see 93 participants just a little bit ago. Oh, we do have a question from Argento Oriana, Public Library Director again. Has it been discussed to have term limits for the committee members?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, it hasn't been discussed.
So I do notice that 3 people said that it didn't work well for them today. I don't know who said that. I would really love if you did have issues to either directly email me at tbrown@illinoisheartland.org or Chris would also like to hear from you. Because if you had issues, we'd like to know about it and we'd like to fix those. Also, Esther has a question here. I'm going to promote her in. Let her get connected.
There was a comment while you were connecting her, Troy. Tina says Zoom is easy and that she thinks it minimizes discussion, although she doesn't know if that's good or bad that it minimizes discussion.
Well, we don't want to minimize. We want people to feel comfortable to communicate. However, we do realize that not being face-to-face, it does put a different feel to it. But we want you to raise that hand if you have a comment or question, or we don't want to discourage any conversation. Esther, there you go.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to the question about term limits for the committee members. Since I think I'm on every committee almost. What we I think are seeing throughout the years so far is that the committee members, not the chairs, but the committee members themselves, there is a lot of fluctuation. So you don't really see a lot of people that are just hanging in there forever and ever to a point that you're not getting any new input or anything like that. So I think it's always been kind of a discussion if that becomes a problem and there's not the participation and not a lot of new input, that we'd have to do term limits. But it's just so much easier to not worry about that and let normal attrition take care of the situation. And I think so far it's worked fairly well.
And Esther, before I let you go, there was another question in the Q&A, just kind of from Tina asking how do new people get on the committees. We don't want to, I think the idea is you don't want to not have openings for people to volunteer for. So. Right. Yeah. And generally at the, I always did it on the CERT committee around the start of the fiscal year. Just if we had people saying they weren't going to be in it, we'd send out an email saying, anybody interested in participating, contact us, let us know. So generally, as we have openings, we send out information and say who would like to participate and go from there. And you can always ask, just send in an email to the chair and say, hey, next time you have an opening, keep me in mind. That's always nice to have too, because sometimes you need a replacement sooner than the time it takes to wait for everybody to reply to emails and so on. So either way works.
Maybe I could suggest to Chris for the next, our newsletter that goes out, the moving forward, maybe list all the committee chairs and put in there that if you are interested in serving on one of those committees, please email that committee chairman and then they can keep your name in reserve for when there's an opening?
This is Jill, and I'd like to make a comment on that too, if you don't mind. I mean,
Sure, go ahead.
honestly, sometimes we struggle to find people to be on these committees, and I can tell you that myself and Miranda and Diane Yeoman have been on the Share Finance and Policy Committee since its inception, and it might be fair to say that any of the three of us, and Esther, sorry, don't want to leave her out, would be, you know, probably more than happy to walk away for a brief time or maybe onto something else, but we don't do it because we don't want to do it at the expense of the committee not being able to function. So it isn't necessarily that we, you know, love to like the power of it all and the glory, because there isn't any, but just that it's more of a, we need people to step up and say, hey, I would love to be on your committee. And then trust me, we'll probably see some people move along because they've done more than their fair share of time.
And it also helps to have some people on there consistently, just for institutional knowledge. I mean, if you clear out the entire committee and start all new, you're going to be recreating the wheel, because we've probably already been there, done that, and had that discussion. And somebody that is familiar with the process, helping out and educating the new people coming in is a good process and helps us keep that continuity going.
So I think it is a good suggestion to put the committee chairs in the next newsletter and put it out to the membership that if you're interested in serving on a committee, please contact that committee chair so we can get you incorporated in as soon as there's an opening.
And I'm going to echo what Jill said, that in the past we have struggled to find members for our committee. But if this is an issue that enough people are concerned about, there's nothing to say that Executive Council can't look at it and say, well, maybe we do need to make some changes. We're not going to rule that out.
No, we've only been at this 4 years, and I'm just finishing up my second year of being on the committee. So I mean, there's still a lot of groundwork covering working as this shared system. So we appreciate comments and concerns and suggestions like that. The executive committee is always willing to discuss stuff. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Tina. Tina said, thank you, all of you, for everything we've been doing. All right. That's a good question, Troy.
Well, thank you. I do my best. I'll give it about 30 seconds to fill out here.
Okay.
You know,
just to let everyone know, the Share Executive Committee does not meet completely by Zoom. We have agreed that we will meet one time a year face-to-face, but we were trying to use Zoom today to cut down. We know that a lot of people cannot take the time to travel to a central location. Where some of us are small agencies, that some of us are single person agencies, so we can't leave. So we were hoping by doing it by Zoom today that it would enable people who normally do not travel to the meetings to be able to participate and have their voice heard. So we're still working through. These are baby steps. And that's an interesting poll. 62% would not have traveled to Effingham to be at the face-to-face. So I think this is a good thing that we did it today. We got people involved who might not have been able to be involved otherwise. So, and again, April will be looking at how to handle the next semi-annual meeting, which will be in 6 to 7 months. So please pass on your comments to those of us on the Share Executive Committee for this.
I think it gives us an opportunity to see what the capabilities of Zoom are on a large scale. It works very nicely for the committee work, but it's the first time we've tried this on this big a scale, and I think we can see there's some potential limitations that we need to address in the future for using it. I think it has its upsides, as people have pointed out, not being able to see some things, though, does kind of decrease the experience. Now, if that's the only way you can experience it and wouldn't have been able to participate otherwise, I think you're probably still ahead of the game. But that's something that we can be looking at before the next time we want to have a large-scale meeting like that as well.
Okay. If there are no other comments or questions,
There's a question from Sandy West. What is your total share membership currently? I see that this should have had more attendance.
483.
and we had, I think 93 was the biggest number I saw down at the bottom, and I don't know if that counts those of us that are visual. So close to 20%.
I would also say that I've talked to a number of smaller libraries this week and asked them if they were going to attend the meeting. And they all said, I'm going to try. I'm the only one working at the library. When I told them that the meeting would be recorded, they said, good, I'll watch it later. So I don't, for some, it's not a matter of choice.
Right.
Hey,
And
Chris.
you know, if people think that this is a small percentage, if you belong to non or community organizations, membership attendance at meetings is awful no matter what kind of organization you belong to. I'm treasurer for the Chamber of Commerce here in St. Joseph, and we have 60-some members, and we're lucky to get 10 at a monthly meeting. And that's face-to-face here in St. Joe, local. So when you start adding in that we're half the state trying to get people in a central location or even on a meeting time, you're just dealing with even bigger numbers. And it looks like Marianne is back. Do you have a question for us, Marianne? And she's muted still.
Oh, I got you. There you go.
I'm sorry. I actually have a comment. The question was a little deceiving. I didn't answer the poll because I would not travel to Effingham for a 2-hour meeting. It takes me an hour and a half to get there. But when we had the all-day sessions, it was almost like going to a mini conference where you had the vendors, you had a lot of different meetings to go to. I'd bring staff, we'd cover different topics and spend the day. That's a lot different to me. The Zoom works great for a 2-hour meeting. I'm not going to travel that far for 2 hours. But for an all-day session, I would. Okay, thank you.
That's a great.
No problem. Thank you, Marianne. And I think, again, with the all-day thing, it's a nice thing. But, again, we have a lot of members who couldn't even do an all-day thing, even considering it a mini conference. So we're trying to play with some different types of formats and see what works. And, you know, doing a variety of different meeting formats means we meet different people's needs and hopefully means we get a good membership participation across the various types of meetings.
And we might consider sending out a survey after this to see, did people like this? Would they rather meet in person? Would they rather do a hybrid where most of us are in person and some are online? Do we want to do another all-day session? So I think that we should probably get that together and find out what our members want and need.
Well, I would also add in that the all-day session that Marion referred to was actually IHLS Member Day, and we tacked on a semi-annual meeting for SHARE at the end of the Member Day. We are planning a Member Day for this spring. I don't know that we'll need another meeting, SHARE semi-annual meeting that quickly, but if everybody or a lot of us are together, it wouldn't hurt to have a semi-annual meeting. We just decided we weren't going to have one in the fall because there were so many other conventions and conferences going on in the fall.
Okay. Any final comments, questions? We don't want to cut anyone off. We've allotted 2 hours, obviously. Please feel free to speak. We don't want to hamper discussion just because we're doing it this way. Okay. If there are no further comments or questions, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Bobby, I'll move.
Is there a second?
This is Jill. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting, and I would like to thank everyone again today for attending, and everyone have a great day. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.